Rain poured over the cracked streets of downtown Chicago, drowning out the sounds of the city. Arya Blake, a broke med student, pulled her thin jacket tighter as she left the diner where she worked late shifts to pay for her mother's medical bills. The night was quiet, too quiet, until she heard it. Gunfire. Screams echoed through the alley behind her. Arya froze. Two men were running toward her, one clutching a bag, the other firing shots over his shoulder. She ducked behind a trash bin as a bullet whizzed past her ear. Her hands trembled. She didn't belong in this kind of danger. Then through the smoke and chaos he appeared. A tall man in a black coat stepped into the street, his presence cold and commanding. The attackers stopped, fear flickering across their faces. In one swift, deadly motion he drew his gun and fired. 1, 2, 3. Silence followed. Arya stared at him, his expression unreadable, his eyes the color of storm clouds. "Who are you?" she whispered. He looked down at her, blood splattering his sleeve, and said in a low, accented voice, "Someone who just saved your life." Before she could respond, her vision blurred. The last thing she saw was his strong arms lifting her as darkness claimed her. When she woke, the air smelled of leather and smoke. The room was vast, filled with marble and gold. Guards stood outside the door. Her pulse quickened. A voice from the corner made her flinch. "You're safe, Bella. You're in my home now." She turned, and there he was, leaning casually against the wall, a glass of whiskey in hand, his shirt half open. "Why am I here?" she demanded. He smirked. "Because if I hadn't found you, you'd be dead by now. And in my world," he stepped closer, his gaze sharp as a blade, "life-saving comes with a price." Her breath hitched. What kind of price?" His lips curved into a dangerous smile. "You'll find out soon enough, Arya." And for the first time she realized, she hadn't been rescued. She'd been claimed. Arya's heart pounded as she backed away from him. The air in the luxurious room felt thick, like danger itself had a pulse. Lorenzo DeLuca. The name fell from the lips of a guard outside the door, and the sound alone made her blood run cold. She'd heard whispers about him, the Italian Mafia boss, the man who ruled the city's underworld with violence and silence. And now he stood in front of her, calm, unreadable, impossibly composed. "I don't owe you anything," Arya stammered, trying to sound braver than she felt. Lorenzo's lips twitched into a faint, humorless smile. "You owe me your life, Dulcezza. That's not nothing." She glared at him. "Then send me home. I'll pay you back however I can. I'll find the money." His eyes darkened instantly. "Money?" He took a step closer, voice low and dangerous. "Do you think I need your money?" He reached into his pocket, pulling out a black handkerchief to wipe a smear of blood from his wrist. "What I want can't be bought, Arya." The way he said her name, it felt like a promise and a threat all at once. She swallowed hard. "Then what do you want from me?" Lorenzo didn't answer right away. He simply circled her slowly, his presence suffocating. "I haven't decided yet," he murmured. "But until I do, you'll stay here. My men will protect you. No one leaves my house without my permission." "I'm not your prisoner," she snapped. He stopped in front of her, eyes narrowing. "You're alive because of me. Out there," he nodded toward the window, "they'd kill you just to hurt me. In here at least you'll live." His tone softened, almost too quiet to hear. "Don't make me regret saving you." Arya turned away, her chest tight with fear, and something she couldn't name. Because beneath the menace in his voice she'd caught something else. Something that sounded dangerously like interest. As she lay awake that night she told herself she hated him. But the echo of his words haunted her. "You owe me your life, Dulcezza." And she couldn't stop wondering what kind of payment a man like him would demand. The next morning, sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, casting golden stripes across the silk sheets. Arya blinked awake, momentarily forgetting where she was, until she saw the tall security guard outside her door. Reality hit like a slap. She wasn't home. She was still in Lorenzo DeLuca's mansion. Breakfast was already waiting, a tray of croissants, berries, and coffee that smelled too expensive to touch. Arya barely took a sip before the door opened. Lorenzo walked in, crisp black shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled to reveal veins and scars that told their own stories. He looked every bit the danger people whispered about. "Sleep well?" he asked casually, pouring himself a drink, at 9 a.m. Arya's hands tightened on her cup. "Let me go. Please. I won't tell anyone what I saw." He chuckled, the sound smooth yet mocking. "You still don't understand, Bella. You can't just walk out of this world once you've seen it." "I didn't choose to be in it," she shot back. He set his glass down, his gaze cutting into hers. Neither did I. But here we are. For a moment, his eyes softened, haunted by something she couldn't name. Then the mask returned. You'll stay here until I say otherwise. You'll have everything you need, clothes, food, safety. His voice dropped. And me when I decide you're ready. Her breath caught. Ready for what? He smiled faintly but didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, his cologne rich, dark, intoxicating, filling her lungs. My men will escort you around the house. Don't wander off. As he turned to leave, she blurted out, Why are you doing this? Why me? He paused in the doorway, half in shadow. Because Arya, he said, voice low and rough, you're not like the others. You looked at me like I wasn't a monster. The door closed, leaving her trembling. From that day, Arya roamed the mansion, its gold halls, guarded gates, and secrets whispering in every corner. But even surrounded by luxury, she felt like a bird in a gilded cage. And the man holding the key was the devil himself. Days blurred into nights inside the DeLuca mansion. Arya found herself memorizing the sound of his footsteps, steady, heavy, and deliberate. Every time Lorenzo entered a room, the air seemed to shift, pulling her into his orbit no matter how hard she tried to stay away. She caught glimpses of him in moments that almost felt human. Late at night in his study, shirt unbuttoned, sleeves rolled, cigar smoke curling through dim light. The man who ruled empires looked lonely when no one watched. But in the daylight he was all control again, cold, composed, untouchable. One evening after dinner, Arya walked down the grand hallway toward her room. The lights flickered. The house was silent except for the rain tapping on the windows. Then she felt it, his presence before she saw him. Couldn't sleep? Lorenzo's voice was smooth, too close. She turned. He stood in the shadows, his dark hair slightly tousled, tie loosened. The intensity in his gaze made her heart stutter. Don't sneak up on people, she whispered. I wasn't sneaking. He stepped closer, stopping only inches away. I was watching. Her breath caught. You enjoy scaring me? He tilted his head. I enjoy watching you pretend you're not curious about me. Arya's lips parted, but no words came out. Then his hand brushed a strand of hair from her face, fingertips grazing her cheek. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. I saved your life, Dulcetsa. And someday soon, I'll collect my payment, in bed. Her heart slammed against her ribs. You can't just. But he only smirked, eyes dark with challenge. Relax. I won't touch you until you beg me to. Her cheeks burned, fury and something else, something forbidden, flooding her chest. That will never happen. Never is a long time, he murmured, his lips almost brushing her ear. Then just like that he turned and walked away, leaving her trembling in the quiet hall. That night, as she lay awake staring at the ceiling, Arya told herself she hated him. But deep down she knew the truth. Lorenzo DeLuca was becoming the only thing she couldn't stop thinking about. Arya hated the way her body betrayed her. Every time Lorenzo entered the room, her pulse skipped. Every time his voice brushed her name, her chest tightened. She told herself it was fear, had to be fear. But fear didn't make her dream of the man she swore she despised. One morning, she walked into the mansion's library to find Lorenzo alone. He was seated behind a mahogany desk, a gun resting beside his papers. The sleeves of his white shirt were rolled up, revealing a faint scar running down his forearm. He looked up, catching her in the doorway. Looking for something? He asked. She crossed her arms. A book. One without bullets or blood on it. A low laugh escaped him, warm and dangerous. You've got spirit, Bella. I like that. She ignored him, scanning the shelves. But her gaze fell on the fresh bandage around his hand. A dark stain peeked through, blood. Instinct took over. You're hurt, she said, stepping closer. It's nothing. Let me see. He hesitated, then extended his hand. She knelt beside his chair, carefully unwrapping the bandage. The cut was deep, the skin bruised. She bit her lip as she cleaned it with trembling fingers. Lorenzo watched her silently, his eyes softening with something that wasn't lust or control, but pain. When she finished, she looked up, and found his gaze fixed on her lips. You shouldn't care for me, he said quietly. It makes this harder. What does? She whispered. Pretending I don't want you. Her heart lurched. Before she could pull away, he reached up, brushing his thumb against her chin. For a moment, time stilled. His warmth, his scent, the danger that pulsed between them, it was intoxicating. But then he exhaled sharply, pushing his chair back. Go, Arya. Before I forget, I promise to wait. Her breath trembled. She stood, backing away, her hands still shaking. As she closed the door behind her, she caught her reflection in the glass, flushed cheeks, wild eyes. The mafia boss was supposed to be her captor. So why did it feel like she was the one falling into his trap? For weeks, the uneasy calm around the DeLuca mansion felt like the silence before a storm. Arya had learned to live within his walls, to eat breakfast under watchful eyes, to walk the garden only when guards followed. Yet every night she'd catch herself waiting for him. Lorenzo had kept his distance since that day in the library, but she could still feel his gaze wherever she went. Something unspoken simmered between them, danger wrapped in desire. Then one evening the storm arrived. The sound of gunfire shattered the quiet. Arya jumped from her seat as guards rushed through the halls. Shouts echoed, orders, curses, fear. Before she could process what was happening, Lorenzo burst into the room, gun drawn, eyes blazing. "Stay down," he barked. "Lorenzo, what's?" "Marco Vescari," he growled, checking the window. "My enemy. He knows about you." Her blood turned to ice. "Me?" Lorenzo turned to her, jaw tight. "He wants what I protect. That means you." The windows exploded behind them. Glass rained down as bullets ripped through the air. Lorenzo shielded her with his body, firing back with deadly precision. The roar of engines outside told her this wasn't a warning, it was war. Within minutes, the attackers fled, leaving chaos in their wake. Smoke filled the air. Arya trembled as Lorenzo lowered his weapon, blood dripping from a cut on his arm. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. She shook her head. No, I'm fine." He exhaled sharply, pressing his forehead against hers for just a second. "You shouldn't have been here." "Where else would I be?" she whispered. "You kept me locked inside your world." He opened his mouth to reply, but the phone in his pocket rang. He answered, face darkening. When he hung up, his voice was deadly calm. "They took one of my men. And they left a message." "What message?" she asked, her stomach twisting. His gaze locked on hers. "The girl for the peace." Arya's breath caught. She understood instantly. Marco Vescari didn't just want revenge. He wanted her. The night they came for her, it was silent. Too silent. Arya had just drifted to sleep when the mansion alarm shattered the stillness. Before she could react, the door burst open and masked men flooded in. A hand clamped over her mouth, another around her waist. She kicked, screamed, but a blow to the head sent everything spinning into darkness. When she woke, her wrists were tied. The air smelled of oil and salt, some kind of dockyard. Moonlight poured through broken windows, revealing her captor's cruel smile. "Lorenzo took everything from me," Marco Vescari sneered, pacing in front of her. "So now I'll take what he cares about most." Arya's heart pounded. "You think he cares about me?" "You're wrong." Marco laughed. "Oh, he cares. Enough to burn half the city if you scream." As if summoned by her fear, engines roared outside. Then, gunfire. The walls shook. Men shouted. The sound of a war waged for one woman. Moments later, the door splintered open. Lorenzo stood there, black shirt torn, face smeared with blood, eyes burning like hellfire. Marco grabbed Arya, pressing a gun to her head. "One more step and she dies." Lorenzo's voice dropped into a deadly calm. "Then you'll be the first to follow her." In a flash, Lorenzo fired. Marco's gun went off, grazing Arya's shoulder, but Lorenzo's bullet hit true. Marco crumpled. Lorenzo was at her side in seconds, tearing through the ropes, pulling her into his arms. "You're bleeding," he rasped. "So are you," she whispered back. He laughed, a sound broken and raw. "You're insane for talking back right now." She stared up at him, tears and rain mixing on her cheeks. "You came for me." He brushed his thumb over her lips, voice shaking with emotion he could no longer hide. "I'd cross hell for you, Dulcetsa. I already have." He kissed her then, desperate, consuming, full of everything he tried to deny. The world around them burned, but in that moment, neither cared. For the first time, Arya felt safe in the arms of the man she was supposed to fear. And Lorenzo finally realized, he'd fallen for the one woman who could destroy him. Rain poured down as Lorenzo's car sped away from the dockyard. Arya sat beside him, clutching her bandaged shoulder. The city lights blurred through the window, her heart still racing from the chaos. Neither spoke. The silence between them was louder than the gunfire they'd left behind. Back at the mansion, Lorenzo guided her inside, gently this time. No orders. No commands. Just quiet concern. When the medic finished tending to her wound and left, Arya looked up to find Lorenzo still standing there, staring into the fire. You should rest, he murmured. I can't, she said softly. Not until you tell me why. He turned, eyes shadowed. Why what? Why you keep me here? Why you risked everything for me? He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling hard. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he walked closer, every step slow, deliberate, like a man approaching a confession he'd buried for years. Your father, he began, voice low, wasn't just a doctor. He once saved my life. 12 years ago, after a hit gone wrong, I bled out in an alley. He found me, treated me, never asked who I was. I swore I'd repay that debt someday. Arya froze. My father? You knew him? He nodded. I didn't know he had a daughter, not until I saw you that night in the street. You looked just like him, same courage, same fire. Her heart twisted. So all of this, it was about paying him back? Lorenzo's gaze softened. That's what I told myself. But somewhere between protecting you and wanting you, it stopped being about a debt. He reached out, fingertips brushing her cheek. You made me feel something I thought was dead. Arya's eyes glistened. Lorenzo. He stepped back suddenly, breaking the spell. You should hate me, Dalsetsa. You were right, I trapped you. I hurt you. But every time I look at you, I remember what it's like to be human again. And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving her with a heart that finally understood the truth. The cruel mafia boss hadn't just saved her life. He'd given her his. The next morning, the mansion was eerily quiet. The war with the Vescari family had left Lorenzo's empire bleeding. Men whispered in corners. Phone calls were made behind closed doors. Arya could feel the tension in every wall, every shadow. She found Lorenzo in his study, staring at a map littered with red pins, enemy locations, safe houses, escape routes. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked exhausted, human. You haven't slept, she said. He didn't look up. Sleep's a luxury I can't afford. What are you planning? His silence was her answer. Don't do this, she pleaded. You can't keep fighting like this. The police, the feds, they're coming for you. Finally he turned to her. I've already been hunted my whole life, Arya. What's one more chase? She stepped closer. Then let me help you. His jaw clenched. No. Yes, she insisted. You saved me. Twice. Now it's my turn. Something broke in his eyes. Fear, anger, love. You don't understand. If you stand with me, they'll destroy you too. Then let them, she whispered. Because I'd rather die beside you than live pretending I never met you. Lorenzo's breath hitched. He crossed the space between them, cupping her face in his blood-stained hands. You're insane, he murmured, almost smiling. Maybe, she said softly, but I love you anyway. The words hung between them like a confession and a promise. For the first time, Lorenzo didn't hide. I love you too, Dalsetsa. Enough to let you go. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? He handed her a folded passport and a ticket. You'll leave tonight. My men will escort you to a safe house in Italy. Once you're gone, I'll deal with what's left here. No. He silenced her with a kiss, slow, desperate, final. When he pulled back, there was a glimmer of tears in his dark eyes. Go, Arya. Before I can't let you. She wanted to scream, to fight, but she saw the truth in him. This wasn't rejection. It was sacrifice. And as she walked away, she finally understood. Sometimes, love wasn't about holding on. It was about setting someone free. 2 months later, the sea stretched endlessly before her. Arya stood on the balcony of a small villa in Amalfi, Italy, the morning breeze tugging at her hair. Every night, she dreamed of him, his voice, his touch, the way he said Dalsetsa like it meant something sacred. But every morning, she woke to silence. Lorenzo DeLuca was gone. News had spread of a violent explosion at the DeLuca estate weeks earlier. No bodies were found. The police called it the end of an empire. But Arya refused to believe that the man who had survived 1,000 battles could be buried by one. Still, life went on, or at least pretended to. She worked at a small seaside clinic, treating fishermen and tourists. She smiled when she had to, though her heart remained trapped in a memory. Until that evening. The clinic door creaked open as the sun dipped low. She looked up from her desk and froze. There he was. Lorenzo stood in the doorway, alive, older, scarred, but real. A faint smile tugged at his lips as he said softly, You really thought I'd die before collecting what's mine? Her hands flew to her mouth. Lorenzo. He stepped closer, eyes warm, voice low. I burned the past, Dalsetsa. Walked away from everything. No more guns, no more blood. Just you. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she ran into his arms. He held her tight like a man who'd finally come home. "I thought you were gone," she whispered against his chest. "I was," he murmured, kissing the top of her head. "But the thought of you kept me alive. I owed you more than protection, Arya. I owed you my heart." She looked up at him through tears. "So what now?" He smiled, the cruel mafia boss no longer there, only the man beneath. "Now," he whispered, brushing his thumb over her lips, "I collect my payment." Her lips curved into a trembling smile. "In bed." He chuckled softly. "No. In forever." Their lips met as the sun disappeared into the sea, two souls finally free from debt, danger, and denial. Because love, in the end, was the only payment that ever mattered. Redheart.